Welcome to episode 19 of the Brew Crew Scoop. We're here with Cole, previously known as Oliver Dunn Fan Club. What did he get too trendy for you? Is he doing too well?
To be honest, I didn't realize that it changed my name on here, but maybe we'll fix that.
Coming into today, it is Monday, the 8th of April. The Brewers are 6-2. They're 3-2 since the last episode on their homestand. And we're going to get into that. But today, first, we have an interview with Matt Lepay, who is the voice of Wisconsin Badgers basketball and football, but he also was the fill-in for Brian Anderson as the play-by-play guy for the Brewers TV broadcast for 8 years. So I'm sure you've heard his calls before. And he's someone who we get a lot of comments that people love his calls. We all love BA, but we love him too. So here's our interview with Matt Lepay. All right, we're here with Matt Lepay, the voice of the Wisconsin Badgers basketball and football teams for many years. 11-time, I believe, Wisconsin Sportscaster of the Year. And obviously, you did a lot of Brewers for about 8 years, I think it was. So we really appreciate you being here, Matt. Thank you for your time. And how are you?
Doing well. Good to be on with you guys.
Good.
Spring is here. The snow hopefully is gone for the next 6 or 7 months. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, Championship Monday. We wish the Badgers were playing right now, but we're glad to have you here. So, yeah. So I think as all Brewers fans, we do love BA, but when he missed, you filled in perfectly. So every time we post a highlight on our social media and it's your call, we get tons of comments about how people love hearing your play-by-play. So that's awesome. But
I appreciate that. Appreciate it.
We know about your background in basketball and football, and just a little bit of a background on you. You were born in Ohio. You actually went to Ohio State, and you joined the men's basketball call in '88. It said, and the football in '94, and have been there ever since. Great. Yeah. So you were with the Brewers from 2014 to 2021, was it?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. So we were curious about your background in baseball before the Brewers. Did you play growing up? Were you a big MLB fan? Or was it just always basketball or always football?
No, it was yes and yes. Played it, and through high school, and always was a fan. Growing up where I did in Dayton, Ohio, I was a Reds fan growing up, and I was spoiled. The Big Red Machine years, Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan, and so on and so forth. So that my love of the game, a lot of it came through my father. Who grew up on the south side of Chicago. He was a White Sox fan, and whoever was playing the Cubs. It's kind of how so thought this works. And to this day, we kind of, particularly who's ever playing the Cubs, I'm generally a fan of. So that has not left me, although I have friends connected with the Cubs organization through the years. But yeah, I growing up, that was what I wanted to do, or at least what I thought I wanted to do, was be a baseball announcer. And then in college, my focus really shifted. I wanted to be a college football and basketball announcer, and that's what I ended up doing. The baseball opportunity with the Brewers, quite honestly, fell onto my lap. I did not call a ton of it. Growing up a little bit in college, some American Legion ball out of school, and a one or two Madison Muskies is what they were referred to then, Class A affiliate of the Oakland A's. But I really didn't have a whole lot of sampling to give to the Brewers. But it was cool to be able to do it. It was time to go when at the end of 2021. That was like, let's step aside here now. But yeah, baseball was my first love growing up.
Awesome. Yeah, we're sad that there's no Badger baseball team for you to call, but cool that we got you on the Brewers for a while. So obviously we've heard plenty of memorable calls between Badger basketball, Badger football. We're both big fans of that. So
yeah.
And hey, Brian Anderson stole your not stole, but the Bronson Koenig buzzer beater from you. So you you got to call for him for the Brewers for a little while. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. He had the great television call. We were there on the radio for that, but yeah, it was his call of Koenig's buzzer beater. There was actually a shot in the tournament that I still rank higher than that. It was a Freddie Owens 3 that beat Tulsa, that got into the Sweet 16 because the Badgers were behind. They were down 2, and Freddie hit the 3 for the win. But even Braun Wisconsin would tell you that the bigger shot for him was the one that tied it.
Yeah.
You know, but it was an iconic moment. So yeah, it was. Yeah, he would be jealous of if there were a couple of big Brewer wins that he wasn't there for. But things are working out pretty well for Brian.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'd say so.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess this kind of ties into part of maybe even why we were able to talk to you today is you got a little more free time now where you don't have to balance the baseball. But how was the time when you were kind of juggling all three? Obviously, we know the seasons don't always line up perfectly, but in years past, and especially right when you started, also aligns with some pretty good Badger years, if I remember right. So
Yeah.
how did that kind of work? What was the transition back into baseball like while those awesome Badger years were going on?
Yeah, it was. I try to be pretty honest when I assess my career. My transition was hot garbage. I mean, the good news was the Badger basketball team was in the Final Four my first 2 years with the Brewers, but as a result, I couldn't even get to spring training. And even when I was able to get out there, it would be fairly brief, except for 1 year. I think in 2018, I was out there for the better part of 2 weeks, I think. But yeah, having not called a baseball game in 20 some years, not getting to spring training for any warm up broadcasts, so to speak, and then all of a sudden I'm in Pittsburgh, you know, week 2 or week 3 of the season. It was pretty rough. I'm not going to lie. It just I don't think I would ever put any of those early games on a demo. But at the same time, it was a wild weekend. The first weekend I ever called with the Brewers. They won a couple games. Ryan Braun hit a couple big home runs. He back-to-back games. He took Jason Grilly deep, one to tie, one to ended up winning the game. And there was a game where there was a big fight that broke out. Carlos Gomez.
Oh, I was gonna guess it was Gomez.
Yeah, and Martina Maldonado landed a pretty good punch on Travis Snyder, then of the Pirates. And there was another game where Charlie Morton was pitching, and all of a sudden the ball unraveled. The cover was coming off the ball, so saw a little bit of everything. That was a heck of an indoctrination back into baseball, not being in it, and then had all of that activity going on over a weekend. But it was difficult. I guess I got about as comfortable as you could be being uncomfortable, because with the Badger stuff, I'm there every day. And with the Brewers, I'm there, and then I'm not. And then I'm there, and I'm not. But I will say the organization was awesome. I mean, they treated me better than I deserved, and I always have great respect for the organization in general. And as I talk to you guys, I've got the Brewers Reds game on my iPad over here, so it is fun being a fan right now, and I still keep in touch with those guys. And it's a heck of a broadcast team they have over there with Jeff and obviously BA and the GOAT, Bob Uecker, all that whole group. It's just a great group of broadcasters.
Yeah, I was actually gonna tie into that because you kind of talked about how you kind of had to jump in, and obviously being new, at least to the baseball side, and other than your time with the Muskies, how was it working with Rock on the day to day? Because at least from the fans' perspective, he just seems so not casual, but just relaxed all the time, having fun and so on. So I feel like that probably helped some of the early kind of you talked about from your opinion. It was a little abrupt and not your best work. Can't say I remember it, but I'm sure it wasn't too bad. But
Rock
to add to that. Sorry, but
Rock is awesome.
Going to TV too, because you're obviously on the radio all the time. So working with Rock, but also want to know what it's like. Do you feel like you have to say less when you're on TV because we can see what's happening? But
yeah. The first thing, I'll start with Rock, who's awesome. I'll text him during games, just because, and he gets to the point where he expects that now. But yeah, he's a great dude. We hit it off really well. Every day at the ballpark, I would laugh out loud, not a chuckle. We would just laugh because he's funny. He's unbelievably loyal. One of the first conversations we had, he mentioned, he says, everything I have, I owe to the Brewers. Obviously he played for the Angels for a time as well, but he's a Milwaukee Brewer through and through, had the great year, particularly in 1987. But he does so much for the organization, and he is grateful for the treatment that the organization has given him. So he helped kind of calm my nerves a little bit, especially the first year or two. But the transition, yeah, it's a transition how you describe a game on radio as opposed to television. That can be very different. And then, the pace of the game. Now with the pitch timer, there's more tempo, but, there was a time these, baseball games were taking forever. The time between pitches, and I was really, trying to get used to the pace. And a television broadcast can be more of a conversation, and eventually you relax. And when you get to know the club a little bit, that helps. But that's where not being around it every day added to the challenge for me, because I'm a slow cooker in terms of developing relationships. I like to be seen, not heard, by the guys, where they start to, okay, they know who I am. And, like Ryan Braun was kind of a godsend for me. He was one of the mainstays, as much as the roster always changed. I knew him, he knew me, and was familiar with Rock and I working together and all of that. But yeah, you are on television, very general way of describing it. You're more of the caption, and the analyst, Rock, is the star. Where on radio, you're painting the picture, and there's more on the play-by-play announcer, where the analyst chimes in, kind of gets in, gets out, a little more of a quick hitting type of a technique. But on television, we wanted Rock to be the star. And one of the things he told me too, he says, there's nothing wrong with a little dead air. That's okay. Let the game breathe. And that was pretty comforting to get that, that feedback and that insight from Bill.
Yeah. The pace of play piece, I guess I didn't think about as much, especially going from radio, basketball, for example. You're never not talking, I'm guessing, and at least from listening and thinking about how I'd attempt to call a game, which wouldn't go so well. But that compared to, especially, the pre-pitch clock, where there's a lot of the dead time. But it's a lot different too, where listening to, obviously, a radio broadcast in Milwaukee, you're listening to Uecker, and I feel like he doesn't allow any dead time because he's always telling a story or making something up on the fly and rambling. But baseball kind of allows you to do that. You're not missing a ton of action. And that kind of ties in. I just wanted to ask, and you mentioned, obviously, being around one of the GOATs in Uecker, but what was it like just seeing him on more of a day-to-day? And I'm sure, obviously, you're not calling the game next to his side while he's doing the radio stuff, but maybe catching a brat with him in the press dining hall or whatever it might be. But
yeah, you won't be surprised when I tell you that he is the funniest human being I've ever met. I mean, he just, and the thing about him, particularly my first couple of years when I would, be with the Badgers, they're in the Final Four, and I feel like my tank might be running a little bit low after a basketball season, but then I'd see you bouncing around the ballpark, just 3 hours before first pitch, cutting it up with the guys at the clubhouse and being around the batting cage, and just the energy that he has. I'm thinking, well, if this guy's got this much juice, then let's go. He gets everybody else going too. He's just a guy. He walks into a room and he brightens the room. I've actually a couple times sat in kind of in the back, toward the back of the booth on the radio side. If I was with the team, BA was finishing up a stint and ready to go back to the NBA playoffs or whatever he had. There was a time or two I would just be on the radio side, just observing. And the thing about Bob is his ability to tell stories. I mean, I'm not the first, I'm probably the millionth guy to tell you that Bob Uecker can make a bad game good and a good game extra special, because he has the storytelling ability. He can make you laugh for 2 or 3 innings at a time when it's 10-0. And yet when the big moment happens, he's still on it. I mean, Chourio hits his first major league home run the other day, and Bob was calling it on the radio. There was something that was just perfect about that. The phenom gets his first bomb in the big leagues, and 90-year-old Bob Uecker is still telling us he's got his fastball to be able to describe that. But he is one of a kind. I always tell people, enjoy every inning he is on the air, because we just, the guys like, Vin Scully, and a guy I grew up listening to a lot in Cincinnati, Marty Brenneman, they've retired. Obviously, we lost Vin a couple of years ago, but Marty is retired. Those guys that if you're of a certain age, you just, hearing their voices, it takes you back to spring and summer. Cherish every opportunity you have if you're in the car driving around and Ueck is on the call, because you're listening to somebody very, very special.
Yeah. Yeah. I know this year, especially like while I'm working or something, I like to put it on in the background. And one, I'm obviously still able to work. I'm not watching the game, but two, it's just being able to listen to you, because I know this year he's not taking a step back, but maybe calling a few less games, which is probably fair now that he's 90 years old. So it selfishly, right? You don't want him to have to miss a game, but we'll always have so many good calls with him. And I don't know, he's like the
Yeah.
voice. Obviously, he's the voice of the Brewers, though, which I mean, similarly, honestly, you're the voice I associate with, driving around in the fall and I'm listening to a Badgers call or a basketball game. Try to watch. I feel like basketball, I really try to watch because I don't like it on the radio quite as much. But yeah,
No, it's the thing. The thing too about Bob is that how he takes in the radio guys. If it's Jeff, Lane, Josh, it's almost like Big Brother in a way. He's making sure that things are good with them. Kent Sommerfeld, the engineer there, has been doing it for years and years. All those guys have told me that when they get hired, they meet with him in the process, and he makes them feel very, very comfortable. I mean, everybody knows who Bob Uecker is. Even people who maybe rarely, if ever, listen to Brewer games on the radio. If you're old enough, you remember him on the Tonight Show. You remember Mr. Belvedere, the Miller Lite commercials. He is known for so many things, but for him, it always comes back to baseball, and it comes back to his fellow radio broadcasters. And just observing that, I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, you hit it on the head with how cool it was with Jackson Chourio getting his first home run called to be by Bob Uecker. Cole and I put it on social media and just said, like, I feel like this is going to be a famous Milwaukee video for years to come if Jackson Chourio is anything what he's been hyped up to be. So it's awesome. And everyone who I've ever met who's met Bob Uecker, obviously you spent a lot of time with him, but just says he's the funniest guy. I don't know if you got any of the famous moments where he hits the cough button and says something funny while he's on air, but
yeah, a few of those. I remember at Old County Stadium when we were radio reporters. We weren't obviously calling a game, but you would sit out in the open air, and a couple times it'd be right under the radio booth. And oh yeah, it's some of the best stuff is stuff that you're not going to hear. But obviously the stuff on air is really funny too. He has comedic genius, timing, and an ability to call a game that, like I said, is just extra special.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, maybe wrap a couple of questions into one, but if you were there for some great years in Brewers history in 18 and 19, especially 18, seeing a guy like Christian Yelich turn into Barry Bonds for a season and a half. Did you have a favorite moment and covering the team, and did you have a favorite like guy on the team, or maybe an opposing team that you like to talk to or learn something from, or just spend time with?
What? I always liked Brawny, and understand that I wasn't around long enough to really get to know these guys.
Yeah.
Well, but Ryan was a guy that because he was a mainstay, and let's face it, guy had a clutch gene too. He just had this knack of when the lights were brightest, he was going to deliver. Yelich, obviously, Lorenzo Cain, really good guy. Obviously, at his best, one of the great players that we've seen in the last several years with the Brewers. Hader, really enjoyed him. Just a great laid back guy. Obviously, a great closer. Jeffress, Jeremy Jeffress, really good dude. I mean, that's the thing about the ball club. I think as much as we talk about analytics and trying to find the right fit, they've really done a great job in just bringing in good clubhouse guys. I never really got to know Stephen Vogt very well, but he's hilarious. Yep. I mean, at a veteran presence, obviously, who brought value to the club, and now getting his taste at big league managing with the Guardians. But they've had that mix. I mean, I'm thinking out loud here. Suter, just a hilarious. Brent Suter, just a great guy. They've had a lot of them, but yeah, and then the
Yeah.
moments, boy, you're right. I was lucky. I know 14, they had the great start. In the second half, they faded. 15, 16, choppy. But even in 17, they didn't make the playoffs, but they took it down the second to last day of the regular season. And, Jesus Aguilar was coming around.
Yeah.
And, but the moments, there's a couple that stand out for me. I think one was, but both, 19 really stood out to me because of the start that Yelich got off to. He's coming off the MVP year in 18. And, you read the preseason, if it's websites or publications, like, well, there's probably going to be a regression. Christian Yelich is a pretty good dude, laid back guy, but he keeps receipts. And when he's hitting bombs every other at bat in 19, he made mention that, well, this is some kind of a regression here we had. And had he not been hurt in September, he was, with all due respect to Cody Bellinger, he was going to be the MVP again, in my opinion. So, a lot of his moments really stood out. But opening day of 19 was cool. That was the Lorenzo Cain home run robbery at the end. But that game had a little bit of everything, too. And then later that year, against, I think it was in 19. Yeah, it absolutely was in 19. It was a July game against the Cubs, extra inning game, and Keston walked off Craig Kimbrel. Just hit a laser opposite field. And it was a July game, but it had an October feel because it was the Brewers Cubs. Those were pretty good moments.
Yeah, my dad and I were at that Hira game. That was quite the moment. But yeah, that first series with Yelich in 2019, where, like you talked about, those regression articles, and I think he had 4 home runs in that first series, and then you pair it with the Cain home run robbery. I think Hader had an immaculate inning in that series.
He did.
Yelich had a walk-off double to win the series. That was awesome.
Yeah, on a 101 mile an hour sinker, if I remember right, too. It was a bolt.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was peak Yelich was ridiculous. That we were lucky to witness that. And obviously last year he had he had a year that was kind of like his best years with the Marlins, and as we record this, off to a pretty nice start this season. So if he can just be somewhere close to that, then they've got somebody really good and really important for what they're doing with all the young guys on the club this year.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't think you hit on my favorite call or game you were a part of, and one of the ones I feel like I see every year, normally on Mother's Day.
And there's a drive, deep left field, it is gone! Manny Pina, a 3-run bomb in the 8th.
Yeah, they have a little Mother's Day magic with this club, going back to the 80s, and then obviously Bill Hall, and that was against the Mets. That was a big comeback for the Brewers. I think he homered in the 8th inning for the lead. And then was it in 19 was Freddie Peralta's debut was on Mother's Day out in Colorado. So there's something about Mother's Day that's been pretty good for the Brewers.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted to hit on a little bit just well, I guess, Cole, do you have any other questions first? Because I was gonna save this one for the end, but I didn't know if you had anything else on the sheet.
Well, you already hit on some Ryan Braun love, which we're missing our other co-host, but that's obviously his favorite player of all time. So happy that you were able to get that in for him, even though he had to miss Kian. He's coaching high school ball this year, but
he was bummed and says hello. We promised him. So this kid you've never met says hello, but he's a big
all right,
fan.
well, give him my best.
Well, we didn't have to force you to talk about Braun, so he'll be happy that it came out on its own. But yeah, I know one other question that, you even kind of talked about where you discussed coming into the industry, how you wanted to be in baseball, and then you worked yourself into, or the way you phrase it, you wanted to work yourself into basketball and football, and obviously we know you've done that. But we recently had on the AA affiliates announcer, Javik, and we got to talk to him a little bit, and it was really cool. And he's already got a ton of baseball experience. He's been at independent ball, college ball, Northwoods League, Cape Cod League, and now he's with the AA affiliate for the Brewers in Biloxi. And he's kind of killing the game. And obviously he's done everything it seems like he can to get where he wants to be. But do you have any kind of advice for, I don't know, yourself, maybe if you were looking to get into industry today or something like that?
Broadcasting or podcasting, just the sports media game, I guess. We just wanted to hear what your biggest advice would be, I guess.
Yeah, just do it. I mean, just, get on the air. You want to be on the air, get on the air. And I think now,
Yeah, especially
in today's
now.
world, I mean, with podcasts, you guys are doing your thing, and get more reps, and be a good interviewer, be a good listener. That's a major part of this. I was talking to a kid earlier today, a high school sophomore, and he had a list of questions all written down, which is great. But so if you're a really good listener, sometimes you can stray off of what you think you're going to be asking, because the person you're interviewing might take you down a path that you weren't expecting, and it might be really interesting. But having the questions prepared is a good thing as well. And I think with the guys in the minor leagues, you just keep getting the repetitions, and then this is where the luck factor comes in too. You keep punching, keep calling games, because you love it. And I think that's where the guys in the minor leagues, or guys, Lane Grindle, work college baseball. He called a lot of Nebraska games. And, if you do that for a few years and you're still not breaking through, but you're still doing it, that means you're in it for the right reasons. And you just stay with it, and then see if you can't catch a break. But you never underestimate the power of luck and good timing and all of that. But as long as you love what you do and you can't wait to get to the ballpark, or if you're a football guy or a basketball announcer, get to the stadium, get to the arena, as long as you are eager to do that, then you're in it for the right reasons. And the same thing with podcasting. And I always tell folks it never hurts to be able to write well, because you never know where the sports media industry can take you. But the best way to get better is to do it. Like, you want to be a better hitter, you spend time in a cage. You're not just looking at somebody, watching video. Okay, here's how Yelich does it, or here's how Jackson Chourio does it. You've got to get in there yourself and take your swings.
Awesome. Yeah. So the question that I had that we wanted to save towards the end, but I would guess that maybe your favorite moment covering Badgers, and we got a lot of Badgers fans listening to this podcast. It's Brewers, but a lot of Badgers fans. I'm guessing your favorite moment might be beating Kentucky in the national semifinals. But if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But what do you think is your favorite moment covering the Badgers over your?
Yeah, with basketball, that would have to be, because that's the deepest they've gone. But I would say, that 2000 Final Four run was pretty amazing. I mean, they were a 500 team in the Big Ten, and then a guy named John Bryant, who averaged, I think, 8 points a game in the regular season, doubled that in the 4 games that propelled Wisconsin into the Final Four. Dick Bennett is a friend. I'd even go back further, the '94 team that finally made the NCAA tournament after 47 years of not. But yeah, the Sam Dekker step back 3, and then he takes a charge at the other end, and giving Kentucky its only loss of the season. That's been the best, I think, so far. But as I always try to say, maybe the best is still yet to come. Who knows?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that we'll see you on Monday night. That gives me chills every time after they beat Kentucky. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was unfortunately they fell a little short on that Monday night, but the fact that they were there, and so, I mean, you guys know how it works in basketball. You most of the time don't know when your last game is going to be, unless you're really bad. But even now with conference tournaments, you're always still alive. And that was the first time when they played for the title in 15. That was the first time since 1992 where I stepped into an arena, or in the case of 2015, a stadium, and knew that was going to be the last game of the year. But that team was so much fun to watch, not just play, but they were a bunch of goofballs, and they loved to laugh and have fun and jab each other. That was as much of a joy for me as maybe any big time shot or big time moment on the floor, just how close knit that team was.
Yeah. That's why, I mean, personally, I prefer college basketball to the NBA. It's just, I think especially when a college team comes together like those teams did, or I also like Marquette. I don't know if that's okay from your point of view as the.
Oh, good. Oh, good. They're
But
fun to
I like,
watch. They're fun to watch.
I like both. And exactly when you get a team where you're 6, 7 deep and everybody is a very, very good collegiate player, and time's so limited in college sports that it's so fun to watch when the teams come together like that 14-15 run did. And I don't know, obviously those guys have all kept up levels of success past that season too. I know I just saw Nigel Hayes had like a 50-point game, and I think Dekker in London was like the finals MVP or something like that. But yeah, those guys just still kind of making that team proud, I guess. And even, I mean, Bo Ryan just got the Naismith nomination.
He did finally.
Yeah.
He should have been in a long time ago, but he's in now, and that's like he's in a lot of halls of fame. But the Naismith, that's the big one in basketball. So a lot of people have been really fired up for him for finally getting the call.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Sam, he follows us on Twitter and responds to some of our posts. We know he's a huge Brewers fan. So we hoping that maybe in the offseason we could try to get him on the podcast. Maybe that'd be awesome. But he was a favorite of mine always. And just for the record, I don't like Marquette. That's just a Cole thing. But it's more of a rivalry in Milwaukee, I think, than it is in Madison. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. I've lived in Milwaukee my whole life, but I think it's a bigger deal here. But
I've always thought, and it probably rankles Badger fans when I say this, that there's more atmosphere in the building when it's over there, when the Wisconsin Marquette game is in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And maybe to your point, because they definitely get the road team treatment over there. But it's good. It's a great rivalry. And Marquette, Shaka's doing a really good job. They've had, Tyler Kolek is a dude, and also Iguodaro and all those guys. They put together a really nice, really good year this year, and obviously last year winning the Big East in the regular season and in their conference tournament. But that's where you find out how fickle March Madness can be too.
Yeah.
It's just fair or unfair, you're judged by how you do. And Marquette was able to get to the Sweet 16. That's a big benchmark. So that's the next step for the Badgers to try to get back there. They're in the tournament far more than not, but hopefully the day is coming soon where they can advance and make a big run of their own again. Because you get spoiled when it happens.
I know.
All those Sweet 16 runs and then the back-to-back Final Fours, thinking, oh, this happens all the time. And the reality is it doesn't. Just ask, look at Kentucky. When Wisconsin beat them in 15, everybody figured they'd be right back there. And that's not the case. It's just not a given that you're going to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said fickle. Speaking of high hopes coming up for the Badger football team. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them in the college football playoff in the next couple of years. What do you make of that on campus? Obviously, looks like a lot of excitement from the outside.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right. I think it's going to be with the Big Ten expanding now with Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA. That's going to make winning the Big Ten more difficult, but with the playoffs expanding to 12 teams and then in a couple of years probably to 14, that's the goal. That's what you want to do. I think it's going to take some time for through recruiting, either the high school level, the transfer portal. I think we're seeing some of the body types that they're looking for, coming into the program now. But it's this schedule is an interesting one with Alabama coming up here, going to SC, Oregon and Penn State are coming to Madison in November. It's a pretty daunting schedule. As a fan, it's great. The home schedule especially. I don't know if a coach would have that term for it, but it's fun. I mean, it's you love to see big games, and they're going to have a lot of them this fall.
Yeah. Are you excited for the travel to New Jersey and then maybe turning around and making the trip out to LA?
Yeah, that's what they're doing. That the first Big Ten game is at USC, and then the next road game, like 2 weeks later, is at Rutgers. So it's a different world. I mean, part of me, selfishly, I'm kind of excited to go to the LA Coliseum or a basketball game at Pauley Pavilion. But the challenge, for football, I get it. Basketball will be a challenge. The Olympic sports, I think we're all really interested to see how exactly that's going to work. But it's here, so better embrace it.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see how the portal kind of treats us with Van Dyke and some of the other guys they've put together. And obviously Malusi, the way he was looking with that injury last year just sucked because he, I don't know, obviously he was really good for us, but he also, I feel like, just did a lot of the unwritten stuff when Braylon kind of got all the spotlight. So I'm excited, but we don't have to do the full Badgers preview on the Brew Crew scoop here, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we just wanted to really thank you for your time. This was awesome. Like I said already, that we get so many comments about how everyone loved when you were around the Brewers. And also, like I said, a lot of Badger fans too. So this is awesome. And we really appreciate your time. And thank you so much. And go Badgers, go Brewers.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be on with you guys. And yeah, I'm still a Brewer fan. I'm a Brewer fan
Great.
through and through.
even today against the Reds.
Even today, especially
All right.
today, I had some fun. I had a couple Brewer walk-offs or a couple big even wins down there. Not walk-offs, obviously down at Great American Ballpark, but oh yeah. When you're in this business, it becomes more who you get to know than maybe what the uniform looks like. But yeah, I'm and as we speak, it's not starting well, but it's early, so we can get a little comeback there. So no, it's fun. Yeah, I'll always go Brewers and go Badgers. So good to be on with you guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
All right, that was Matt Lepay. So big thank you to him for taking the time. We know he's a super busy guy, but an awesome guy to talk to with a lot of background and just Wisconsin sports in general. So really appreciate his time coming on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Lepay.
All right, yeah. So getting into the Brewers homestand, their 5-game homestand against a couple interleague opponents. They went 3-2. We had our home opener on Tuesday. Game 1 won 3-2. Chourio had an RBI single. Yeli had a solo homer. Trang RBI double. Jacob Junis went 4 innings with 1 earned. And then it went Figueroa, Milner, Payams, Uribe, no earned out of the pen that day. So good to see the pen pick up the slack a little bit for a short start. Spoiler, now we know Jacob Junis is having a little bit of a shoulder injury, but we'll get into that. Doesn't sound too serious. But game 2 on Wednesday, we lost to the Twins 7-3. They were up 2-0 and 3-1. Behind some Hoskins and Chourio home run and a Bryce Terang RBI. But 5-run 7th inning was the difference in that game for the Twins. Joe Ross went 3 2/3, no earned to start the game, but Payams had a blow-up inning, 4 earned. Milner, Wilson, Vieira each had 1 earned. So they split with the Twins game 3. It was a Friday win. Brewers won 6-5 against the Mariners. Adames hit a solo home run. Ortiz had an RBI double. Oliver Dunn had his first career home run. And the game they were up 3-0, then it was tied, and they were up 5-3, then it was tied, and then they finally won 6-5 on a walk-off walk. Yelich had another home run. And then Andres Munoz had 4 walks. So it did some research into the 11th walk-off walk for the Brewers. They also had 1 hit by pitch walk-off. So I couldn't find how many had been on 4 walks in a row. But Munoz is obviously a pretty good closer, but he just cannot find the strike zone. And then game 4, Luis Arias hurt us for the 2nd day in a row. The day before, obviously, we won, but he did have a double that I thought South really could have caught. But I mean, it would have been a tough play. But
yeah, Sal kind of had a couple. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of starting to bite him that he was forced to play everywhere in spring. So we'll just have to let him get comfortable again.
Yeah, I think when Mitchell comes back, he'll probably be playing more center field, but we'll see. But then Luis Arias this time actually cost us the game. A little bit of I think McAlvey called it death by paper cuts in the 3rd inning versus DL Hall. A lot of weak contact, a lot of pass ball, a couple weak singles. They went 1st to 3rd like 4 plays in a row. So they were down 4-0. Chourio made it interesting with the 2-run homer in the 8th. Hoskins had a sac fly. Brewers just missed a grand slam actually. And then Luis Arias provided the solo home run of insurance. And then in game 5 on Sunday, the Crew took the series with the 12-4 win behind an extremely Colin Rea start by Colin Rea. So 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, 3 Ks, no walks. Thiago Vieira had a 3-inning save with 2 earned, but he had 5 Ks, so that looks pretty promising. He's getting a little bit more run because McGill has a concussion. We'll also get into that a little bit, but seeing him out there, the bullpen's been a little bit thin with the short starts and the injury to McGill. But in that game, Bowers, Dunn, Adames, Chourio, and Terang had an RBI. Frelick had 2. William Contreras went 4 for 4 with 2 home runs. He missed the third one by mere inches and had 5 RBI. So that's a rundown of the week. Yeah, Brewers are looking good. I'll definitely take a 6-2 start after all the talk this offseason about them trying to break 500. Obviously, like I said, long season to go, but really good start.
Yeah. I mean, we can't really complain. And so far, I guess plan has worked exactly kind of how we placed it together in the offseason, with guys getting outs and at least doing their job on the pitching side. Defense is holding up, and then offense has been raking. I know for Contreras' 4 hits, all 4 of them were actually over 104 miles an hour of exit velo, which is obviously he's destroying the ball. So if he can keep that rolling, we're feeling good. And then the other one, I know we obviously mentioned Rea had the most typical outing I feel like we can expect from him, where he just got through it. Like he gave up a lot of pretty decent contact, but we have the defense behind him. And I think that's kind of I don't know, the nature of baseball, I guess, is eventually, you'll have a start here or there that will come back to maybe bite him, but on the more often than not, I think he'll be able to get through that and eat innings like we need him to. And I thought it was kind of funny. He was able to eat innings regardless of the stomach bug he reportedly had. So still had the appetite for some outs. But yeah, I think the other thing too with Rea that I thought was interesting was his. I know Savant, I think sometimes isn't great at pitch identification, but it credited him with 6 different pitch types thrown. So it just shows a guy like that where, nothing's gonna jump off the page at you, but if you can keep batters, off balance, I think that helps a lot with a guy like that. So I thought that was big. And then, like you mentioned, DL Hall and the death by paper cuts. I think that's kind of key because on paper, at least earned run wise, right? It didn't necessarily look like a better start than his first start, but watching it, it looked light years better. He only gave up 4 hard hits, I think, in the 5.1 innings. So that's obviously really good for a starter like him. But one thing that I looked at was his fastball velo. It's been a lot of the talk with him moving from kind of the relief role at the end of last year to now more of a starter role. And last year, his average fastball was about 96 miles an hour. And in the outing on Saturday, it averaged 92.7. So that fall off, I think, is partly attributed to him just keeping some in the tank, not knowing how long he's going and so on. So I'm curious if throughout the year he'll kind of get used to how hard he can throw as he gets used to where he's going to sit in like a usual pitch range. So I think that's kind of something to keep an eye on. But even with that fastball being almost 3-4 miles an hour slower, he only gave up, or the average exit velo on his fastball was 81 miles an hour, and that's like super low. That's really good. So with that being his main pitch and he's given up really weak contact on it, if that stays up, I don't really care what the velocity is, right? So I think that was a big takeaway from the game on Saturday, which I think you were at, right?
Yeah. I actually didn't get to really see too much how good the stuff looked because I was sitting on the first baseline at the game. But from everything I heard and saw, it said that the stuff looked way better than the first time. And obviously the numbers show it, like you said. So
yeah, so that's good to hear, I guess. And we just have to see how he comes out next outing. And then I was at the Friday game, and it was a classic kind of young pitcher duel. We'll also call them young guys with Freddie and Gilbert. 2 just really fun pitchers to watch. Freddie, 7 Ks, I think 1 walk in the 5 2/3 was really impressive. And his velocity and everything looked per usual. So we're gonna need a lot out of Freddie this year. So hopefully he can keep that up. And I think the one thing I liked in that game was when Freddie got yanked, they put Hudson in for an inning, and I think to get the last out of Freddie's final inning. And I think that's like the perfect handoff, right? So you go from the kind of electric stuff Freddie has on the right to Hudson's deceivingly quick, or I guess deceivingly slow, because it plays quicker than it is, stuff on the left. And I think the way we're built, it'll be a lot of that this year. But I thought that was a perfect example of that. And obviously in the ninth, like you said, I want to say we picked up Abner's inning, but we didn't really even pick it up. Munoz just gave it to us, but cool with that. I will say at the game, I don't know if on the broadcast they really showed it, but I don't know. I was down the first baseline and I really wasn't sure Contreras held up. But it doesn't matter because the game's over and we won it. But I don't know if you were able to see, did it really look like he checked his swing on the walk-off walk? Or are we just not going to care because we're a Brewers podcast?
I was in a car with some people and I was like, hey, let's listen to Uecker. Because so I had it on my phone. I was like, I'd rather listen to Uecker for this. And I turned on, and I mean, no complaints, but it was, I think, Levering or Grindle. But so it wasn't even Uecker, but I was listening on the radio. So,
well, Levering probably gave you a more truthful answer what happened. You definitely would have said he held up. So,
yeah.
But that's good. But yeah, otherwise, I think just kind of some other quick little savant things I picked up on the 2 games against the Twins. And I know you were at opening day, right?
Yep. Home opener.
Did you park for free or did you pay?
We parked for free on preferred parking, so it made it worth the getting super wet sitting outside for 20 minutes because one of the entrances broke down. So
that's tough. But yeah, I guess in that opening game you were at, you talked about Junis, but he only threw 47 pitches. We kind of knew he had the scratchy shoulder going into it, and that held. But that game 2 was just a perfect matchup of guys getting outs, right? So that was good, and he had a pretty even mix of his sinker slider, which I guess is technically down from last year because he threw his slider like 65% of the time in his outings last year. But that mix, then I think he threw a couple cutters, and I forgot what his other pitch was, but makes sense if you're going to throw more innings to maybe mix in a couple other pitches. But both things obviously were pretty effective. He had 9 whiffs in those 47 pitches, 4 innings, which is, again, good numbers. So if he can keep that up and be a guy that goes, even if he averages 4, maybe 5 innings, I think that's huge. So big to keep that up. And I think that was Yeli homered to center, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then at the game I was at, Yeli pulled one. So
yeah,
Yeli has stayed hot and he's turning on the ball.
Love that he's putting the ball in the air. Good things happen when Yelich puts the ball in the air.
Yeah. And then I guess my last little insight is Joe Ross. I think anyone that was kind of following along with that game, he kind of struggled with walks. But he did what he had to do and didn't really give up the damage. But 5 walks, 73 pitches isn't what you want to hear. But he's a guy, and we talked about it a little bit, but he is still building back up, I think, from an injury years ago. This was his first MLB outing since 2021. So I would like to think he'll improve throughout the year. And I know I mentioned it in like a tweet, but his velo, you could see it falling throughout his outing, which isn't really what you want to see. Maybe it shows that he was kind of, maxing out, I guess, early and then tiring or whatever it might be. But ideally throughout the year, I think he'll be able to regain some of that strength. But like I said, he did his job. So that's good. I know one other thing with his mix was I noticed his slider. He kept out of the zone, which might have been on purpose. But a lot of it was his glove side low. So where you'd expect his slider to fall. But that'd be one thing that might help with the walk situation is just keeping that at least closer to the zone to entice some more swings, or if it's actually in the zone and you're getting the call strike. So that's big. And I know one thing in that game that I noticed was when Bryce Wilson came in, and it kind of stayed true throughout the week, is he kind of got hit hard this week.
Yeah.
So I just hope he can find what he found last year to kind of have his career best and keep it up rather than,
Yeah.
I don't want to say falling off because I don't want to speak it into existence, but he's a guy that in the past he even started. So he's a guy I think we're looking for big innings out of. So hopefully he can figure that out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the Jacob Junis thing, we've hinted at it a couple times, and I'm sure people probably saw if they're following along on Twitter, but the scratchy shoulder. So he underwent some imaging for what they call the scratchy shoulder, which I had never heard that before, but apparently it sounds fairly minor, and they're not too concerned at this point. But that does mean that Aaron Ashby is back, so he is starting tonight against the Reds. So we'll see how that goes. I'm optimistic. I know that the velo I think has been a concern, so we'll see. But he's back, and I don't know. This is a guy they locked up early. They see something real good in him. So he has obviously shown flashes of it. So I'm excited to see that. We need it. You just feel better with these short starts and the thin rotation. Obviously, that's the big question mark on this team. It's good to get him back. It's good to know Wade Miley should probably be back next turn through. Just getting more guys. So
I'm not sure if they've said yet, but I think there's even a chance Miley comes back even sooner than next turn
Okay,
through. I think
yeah.
he could come through this week at some point. I know he had a shorter AAA or AA. I don't remember which level, but
using
rehab
AAA in
start.
Nashville.
Yeah. But I mean, if we need him, why have him pitch the 3 or 4 innings down there if he is
Yeah.
ready enough and can do it here? So yeah, I think that'll be huge. And I think everyone's pretty excited, I guess, to see what Ashby's capable of tonight, because we've kind of seen some ups and downs, and we just need him to be a big piece, I think, for what obviously we didn't, empty the bank on him, but he's a guy we have invested in. So
Mhm.
we saw something, and even without the velocity, because I mean, I don't think it's even fair to expect him to be where he was. But if he still has good stuff and a good mix, so his stuff still moves. Like we were talking about DL Hall, his 96 went to 92 or 93. That's almost the same for Ashby. So if Ashby's stuff still plays, I think it'll be enough. So we'll just have to see. It doesn't help that it's at or in Cincinnati, because that isn't the
Yeah.
most forgiving ballpark, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then the other injury that we hinted at for a second was McGill had some food poisoning in New York, and the injury's not funny, but it is the food poisoning portion was kind of like random. But apparently he collapsed in a Spectrum store in New York and fell, and obviously must have hit his head because he had a concussion. So super scary. Glad to hear that. Sounds like it wasn't anything major, but hopefully we see him back soon. Obviously, not only just hope for him to be okay in general, but big part of that bullpen as it proved late last year. So
I wonder. I think they said he had a stomach bug or whatever, and then
right.
Colin Rea they said also did. So I wonder where those guys got some bad
Yeah.
sushi. I know we checked out some restaurants when we were in New York, and
Yeah,
I wasn't sure how up to
nothing-
code some of those were.
Nothing like when it's 95 and you're checking out Central Park and you want to get a nice, refreshing, hot basket of chicken tenders and fries from a street vendor. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
And then, unfortunately, the injury news that I think is a little more major. It seems like we dodged a bullet a little bit, but Jefferson Caro, the Brewers' highly touted catching prospect, had a dive into first base on a back pick. I think we did touch on it last episode, but
Yep.
say it again. So he dove back in. We found out the shoulder is sublux, so not a dislocation, but a more minor injury than that, but still sounds like he could miss some time. And that paired with obviously super small sample size, but Gary Sanchez is still looking for his first Brewers hit, I believe. He's really struggling right now. So it seems like it's a really good thing that Eric Haas cleared waivers and stayed with the team, because I think Carroll was in the plan for maybe down the line this season, especially seeing Sanchez and Contreras being in the lineup together a lot. So could be good to have Eric Haas on hand, but hopefully Carroll is okay. We know that's what Garrett Mitchell, I think, initially had last year, and then re-aggravated it and ended up needing surgery, missing a lot of time. So we hope to see him back soon. Obviously, really excited to see Carroll, but good to have Contreras in the picture for the next few years, anyways. So
yeah, I'm not too worried about Gary Sanchez yet, but
right.
hopefully we don't get a reason to worry, because I mean we saw last year that he also kind of had his slow spells and
Yeah.
he bounced around. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I guess we do have to remember that the contract turned to be more incentive based, right? So
Yeah.
that's okay.
Well, and this offense too, like you could probably hardly even notice that someone's not hitting right now, because I don't know if it's just a couple years of too much of the defensive focus and pitching, and the offense just struggled. But man, this offense looks fun, and like I said young team. So obviously there's going to be energy, fun in that sense, but they're hitting well. They get on base, they can hit for power, but then also they have so many guys who are threats to steal bases. So it seems like on any given day, like 6 of the guys in the starting lineup are a threat on the base path. So that's awesome to see. We talk about in the playoffs a lot when a lot of times you got to slug to win playoff games. It's all about the timely extra base hits. And this team definitely has some of it, especially if Yelich looks like he's going to start hitting for a little bit more power. He's back in the 3-hole, so maybe the approach changes a little bit. Like I said, anything to get him to hit the ball in the air would be great. So really exciting offense. Not worried about the bullpen's couple of hiccups right now. Just need some starters to come back and give us a little more length. So we saw second time through, Rea pitch 6 innings. We saw DL Hall get into the 6th inning. Wade Miley's always going to give you probably 5 innings. So if we can just shorten the length that the bullpen needs to cover, I'm not too worried. Piams will be fine. Get McGill back. But yeah, this offense is awesome.
Yeah, and I think we all can agree that the guy leading this offense is Oliver Dunn. If you look at his last week, he hit 333 with a 1078 OPS. So across those 5 games last week, 5 hits, a triple, a home run, 3 runs, 3 RBI, 2 steals, and 2 walks. Not to mention the diving play he made with that quick reaction. And I saw Kurt Hogue tweeted today that Dunn is in the 97th percentile in chase rate and 96th percentile in average exit velo.
Yeah.
And I think he was like one of 4 guys to do that. And I know the one name that jumped out at me is Mookie Betts. So
yeah,
Oliver Dunn, Mookie Betts. Maybe we
Juan Soto
do a little
is in it
1
too,
for
I think.
1. Yeah, Juan Soto. But
Mhm.
I don't know if I'd trade straight up. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah.
Dunn for Soto, I do. Dunn for Betts, probably. But Betts is a little older. So I think we'd have to think about it. But we'll see.
Yeah, obviously Oliver Dunn, awesome. See to start, but 2 other shout outs I wanted to give. We said, oh, when Chourio comes up, we got to be patient because he could struggle for a month. His first 2 weeks or whatever, first 8 games, he's holding his own. So, there'll probably be a time where pitching starts to figure him out a little bit and he will hit a slow stretch for sure, but feeling good about him being truly big league ready. So that's awesome to see. The other shout out I want to give was Bryce Terang. This is a guy who was like, he's a Gold Glove caliber second baseman, but he's almost unplayable at points last year because his offense was so bad. And he's come up so far, hit the ball well, gotten on base, stealing bases, and still playing incredible defense. So especially yesterday, he had a couple of really nice plays in the field. He was on base a couple times. So really excited to see what's going to come of that from Bryce Terang, because if he can be even a league average hitter, he's going to be like a perennial Gold Glove candidate. So we know that you need the offense a little bit, the name to win Gold Gloves, but he is really sure-handed out there at second base. So hopefully he can keep up the bat.
Yeah, he's good for about one ESPN top 10 play every week, I feel like. And I think he's going to do a better job just being on base. We don't need him to slug, right?
Yeah,
we just need him to be on base. He'll take second if he wants. So that's huge. And Chourio is definitely worth the shout. He had his first homer on Wednesday, which is awesome. And yeah, he's proven he can kind of do it all. I think his defense will come still. He's still working on kind of first step and instincts, which is, I think, fine because we have a coach like Quentin Berry that can show him exactly how that's done. So that's a guy that kind of made his money doing that and stealing bags. So I think that'll be good.
And right field for, I think, the first, not the first time, I'm sure, but he's played so much center field. So
yeah,
he'll get used to the
he'll be
corner.
Good.
Yeah.
And I think his one other thing is he's had a lot of contact. Like he's been more successful than you'd think, I think, making contact. And I think throughout the season, he'll probably settle in and not be quite as free swinging, I hope. Because he's a guy too, where it's great if he can make contact in or out of the zone. But again, I just want him on first base because he's another guy that can take second, just like half our team. So, yeah, I mean, almost everyone in our lineup, like you said, deserves a shout out.
And even like, people are like, oh, Sal Frelick started slow. Well, he's still lined a double left field yesterday. Like he doesn't look lost at the plate right now. Like everyone looks competitive, and that's great.
Yeah.
Even Jake Bowers was cold
Exactly.
for a week, but he's hitting the ball hard, and
Mhm.
it's gonna pay off. So
And he's got a good glove, so he's proven
yeah,
himself. And
yeah, I
I
didn't know
think
that.
I love watching Sal steal a bag. For some reason, I feel like his
Yeah,
whatever power line or his speed when he comes out, he just stays. He doesn't waste
he's
any
skating.
movement. Yeah,
He's skating on
exactly.
the hockey rink is what
Power
it.
skating.
Yep,
Apollo Ono.
yep, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else you had to hit on real quick, but that's really all I wanted to note besides the game recaps.
Yeah, I think we had a couple waiver claims.
Yeah, we did grab Francisco Mejia, who was in the Vito Jonathan Lucroy trade back in the day. So we're getting all the pieces. We already got
Yep.
Greg Allen.
More
so
AAA depth though, which I think is helpful at the catcher position.
mhm.
And then we also picked up Gutierrez, who is a reliever, I think, from the Reds.
Yep. Yeah.
Which just another move that makes sense, right? You can never have enough of those arms, and we'll see what he's got and if the pitching staff kind of changes anything about his approach. But worth noting.
Joey Weimer, I saw yesterday. I just thought of this. Hit a
Mhm.
2-run home run. The swing looks a lot less, like a lot less moving parts. So, we'll see what comes of that. But Andrew Monstera is a guy who's not really playing that much, and the emergence of Oliver Dunn and like we said, Bowers being a good fielder hitting the ball hard. I wonder if at a point if we think Weimer's ready, if we shift even one more outfielder, and maybe option Monsterio and bring Weimer up soon. So obviously Weimer's a guy was highly touted. He didn't have a lot of time in AAA yet, so I'm sure the plan is still to get him to be an everyday outfielder for us eventually. So we'll see what comes of that, but I could see them making the move to go one more outfielder possibly. Obviously, Mitchell
Yeah,
should be back too in the next month, so we'll see. But
I think Weimer still has some stuff to show. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
other than the homer, he's kind of still working on some stuff,
hmm
working through some stuff. So we'll see. I know though it was I think a pretty good week for the farm too. I know there was I think Ernesto Martinez walk off on opening day for Javik
yep,
down in Biloxi too. So
hmm
I heard that call and saw um, Ernesto Martinez, who is a pretty fun prospect. And I know too he had trying to think. I think Brock Wilkin the other day had a really nice throw to him too, and
yeah,
Martinez hit the splits like he does every once in a while. Which
nasty play both ways. Yeah,
yeah.
third reverse. Yep.
So that was cool. But I know those were kind of the main roster moves. I do know when I went to the game Friday, I didn't see the City Connect uniforms, and I don't know
Yeah.
if you heard anything about that.
Oh, you want me to talk about Fanatics?
Yeah, you love
Yeah, I
Fanatics,
don't know,
right?
man. And I heard a rumor too that they think that the pinstripe ones aren't ready either. So that's why we wore the creams all 5 home games. So whatever. We don't everyone's piling on, so I feel like I don't need to make a big speech about it because everyone is feeling the same way. But I was listening to Micro Brew today with some of the Brewers writers, and Kurt Hogue said that he had a tweet, anti-Fanatics tweet, and he got an email from them asking if they would talk to him or if they could talk to him about possibly taking it down. He was like, no, I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
So that's just so sad. I mean, like we said, it's not the actual baseball, but like Ryan said, Ryan was on the podcast from time to time. He's like, it just sucks because baseball jerseys are so cool, and this year they're not. So it's like, yeah. So I don't know.
yeah, yep,
Hopefully they figure it out. I think they will eventually, but I just hope it's sooner than later because it's honestly just ridiculous. Like,
mm-hmm.
but
Yeah. Until Fanatics offers us something we can't turn down, we are an anti-Fanatics podcast.
correct.
But you know who does make quality sports goods? Spider's batting gloves.
Oh,
Use
Spider's batting gloves.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh, is that your texting glove, or it probably doesn't actually work for that? So that's not a
This is
that's not a
my
claim.
this is my beer drinking glove right here.
Oh, I feel
Spider.
like you got to save that once you're out of your apartment. You'll probably need those for shoveling too. The grip on
Oh
there,
yeah.
I'd imagine that'll work real well. Maybe
Shout out to
lawn work.
Spiders. Our
Yep.
rep, our rep sent us a couple pairs in Brewers colors, so definitely gonna be wearing them in co-ed softball in a couple weeks. I won't be throwing the bat as much. I don't have to use the tape anymore. But yeah, so check out spidersbattinggloves.com. Use the code TheScoop15 for 15% off. But thank you to Spiders. But yeah, that is all I had. Colt, any
Yeah,
final
I think
thoughts?
just two other quick high level MLB things because we got the time. One, I want to say F the A's. Not the
Yeah.
A's themselves, I guess. The players don't deserve the hate, but Fisher has just kind of made a mockery, I feel like, of the league itself and the way he's handled it and the way he's gotten away with things and what they're about to do with this Sacramento move. Playing in a AAA stadium with the the player like clubhouses and locker rooms are out in the outfield.
For 3 years.
Yeah, it's just so
Not 1 year,
stupid.
3 years.
It's a joke. And I think it's just really sad because that's a franchise that's been in the game for over 100 years, I think. And just some absolute greats have played for the A's, and the players and fans that are still there have a lot of pride in the organization. But really, they've given them nothing to cheer for the last, whatever, 45 years. And it's just sucks to see. So wanted to not give a shout out to that. And in a similar fashion, I would also like to give a anti shout out to UCLs across the league.
What the hell, man?
Yeah, it seems like everyone is at least possibly lined up for a Tommy John. And the Cy Young voting is going to be without a whole lot of candidates because of elbow injuries. I mean, Strider is, in my opinion, the kind of most electric guy to watch in the game, right? He's disgusting. His strikeout stuff is insane, and randomly getting an update that he's getting his elbow looked at is just sucks. And Shane Bieber was back in a contract year.
Yeah, that sucks.
And
Bieber sucks.
elbow.
Really.
Yeah,
And
so.
was looking like he was back to his normal self. So that just really sucks. And I know that I think Tony Clark, the head of the MLBPA, came out and bashed the pitch clock and whatever. But I don't know. As someone who was a pitcher, and I worked pretty fast, so it wasn't really a big deal ever. I didn't throw hard either. But and I also didn't use any foreign substances. But I will say, if
allegedly,
you're right.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, you can watch my film. I didn't. But I will say, if you had to ask me what I think would put more strain on my arm, and if it was like Glassnow said, going cold turkey on grippy stuff or a faster pitch clock, I'm definitely saying it's the grippy stuff, because that changes everything for the feel of the ball. So I think they just need to, whatever. This is an old conversation, but they just need to let people use the pine tar if they need to, and if that has anything to do with it, I don't know about the pitch clock. I guess people might feel differently, but that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that has been kind of the common talking point is obviously there's been a change in velocities across the league too, and all the off-season programs throwing weighted balls to just be able to throw harder. But at least from what I heard today, there were a couple of references to some doctors that discussed how the ligament itself isn't necessarily strengthening, it's the muscles around it. And obviously if you strengthen those muscles around it, you can, I think, help avoid injury, right? Because like with my own knee injuries and stuff, if you have more of the stabilization and strength around a joint like that, it can help. But at the end of the day, the human elbow, I don't think, is meant to be doing that. And I think it was Talking Baseball, but they had a good example where they were talking about like Chapman, right? But he's a guy that I feel like is just built to throw that hard and kind of naturally would, right? So he's almost seems like his body's up to the task, where there's some of these guys that are training so hard for this extra velo that maybe they're just really not built to do, right? There's always been guys that are like Randy Johnson. He's just was a freak and could throw as hard as he wanted, whatever, and relatively held up, I guess. But yeah, I think there's something to be said with the increase in velocities, but I don't know how they counter that. I don't really think you can start telling guys to throw less hard or not train to throw hard.
It makes you think, like, what are you gonna do if it just becomes the pitchers just pitch until their elbows go? I don't know what you do with the sport. You can't, like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, I guess we'll just have to see it. You just have to hope that maybe the surgery becomes a little more quick turnarounds or something if it really comes to the point where we're just expecting it. But all that to say, the Brewers don't have too many starters at least throwing that hard, so maybe we won't have to worry about any Tommy Johns.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, yeah, a couple good closing notes. So, but
Yeah,
all
I'm
right,
excited for the week though. What we have 4 against the
yeah,
Reds
4 against the Reds and then 3 against Baltimore, and it sounds like we might be seeing Corbin Burns on Sunday. So
and DL Hall is going to be seeing the O's. So
on Friday, I think. Yeah, yeah,
I think, obviously, in my opinion, anyways, I think the pitchers are generally at a disadvantage in those matchups, right?
Right.
Because they weren't really facing the batters, whereas we were their coach. So we'll see if maybe Hook's got a little insight on how we can get to Corbin, and hopefully Hall can avoid,
yeah.
the Orioles kind of exposing him. But I don't know. We're facing a lot of fun lineups this week, so we'll see how we fare. But I'd expect a lot of runs to be scored across our 7 games this week.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and go Brewers.
Go Brewers.